Let's get it. What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode number 393. My favorite kinds of episodes.
I was going to say, Steve.
Yeah, I'm a sucker.
You love a palindromic episode number.
So good. Yeah, and thank you, John. I'm Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts, and as always, I'm joined by...
Right.
I'm locked and cocked and ready to rock. I'm John.
Yeah. I wanted to thank everybody that's been watching the shorts that I've been putting up of the podcast. I think we got 20,000 short views.
Nice. That's awesome.
But what I love is when I watch one of those, because I'll see it in my feed sometimes, and it's always nice to see,
yeah.
I like to see your efforts, but it's fun to see what piece of the show gets picked to sort of promote the show.
That's AI doing that, by the way.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's funny that it, in fact, if it chooses this clip right now, because we mentioned it by name, it's going to put in every little stammer into the subtitles.
Yes,
I just think that's very funny, and it made me really realize how horrendous my sentence structure is on this show. So it's hopefully it'll make me. I'll bring it into something tighter, more diagrammable.
Right. Dang.
But yes, here we are. 393, the palindrome.
Yeah. So what are we covering today, Steve? I feel like you are a guy.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just stuffing my face over here, guys.
Oh no, it's fine.
He's carb loading for the journey.
I need lots of Chex Mix for this episode, guys. No, yeah, last week John picked our required viewing. It's 1997's Event Horizon, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But then also this week we got some timely releases. Like John was able to check out Next Go Wins, which is opening, I think, in a limited semi-wide release. And then I was able to see The Killer while I was traveling to Atlanta a couple weeks ago.
Oh, cool.
Which comes out today. Or if
you're listening
Netflix
to right
Friday,
now. Yeah.
Right. Comes out the 10th. If you're listening on Friday, it's out on Netflix. But talk about that. And then I think Ronald and John, are you going to talk about Monarch a little bit just to kind of mention some stuff?
Yeah, I would like to. I would like to let folks know some what to expect, but I don't think that we have to say too much about it. Maybe once we've all seen a few episodes, we can talk a little bit more about what the show's doing story wise. But no, I think Monarch is definitely worth a little bit of hype.
Just just timing wise, it's going to be available. So, and then I think we'll maybe mention a couple other little things at the end that we saw, or some of us saw. Yeah,
I had one question. I was kind of dying to ask you guys when I saw this argument pop up on Twitter this last week. And the question was whether Killers of the Flower Moon is a flop or not. It's a movie that costs $200 million or something, right? And it has made now worldwide 121 million. Domestic, it's made about 54 million. We don't measure Martin Scorsese's movies by box office, or even most movies, we don't measure them by their box office. But there has been a recent conversation that he's been part of that has made it so that there's a little bit of there's haters out there jumping all over Martin Scorsese. And of course, he also sometimes makes a movie that's going to get people talking because of the subject matter or how he handles it or whatever. So there's a lot of chatter. But I really wanted to know what you guys think about this idea of, do those numbers indicate quote unquote like a flop or an underperforming movie, or is the fact that it's a Scorsese movie and that whoever invested in it knows it's going to live on in streaming, and however that revenue works, we don't really know, but that it's going to have this other life, that it's worth the money even if it doesn't make a lot at the box office? I just didn't know what you guys think about that idea. Could a Martin Scorsese movie be a flop if it doesn't make its money back?
I mean, to be direct, this is not a flop. I mean, because this is a new model. So, this is Apple, and I think this is Paramount, with Paramount releasing this in a true wide theatrical release for an undisclosed or unconfirmed window, before it goes to the Apple TV Plus streaming service. So, I mean, you could compare this against any of the $200+ million blockbusters, quote unquote, that Netflix has produced and put in one theater for whatever reasons they do that, for qualifying runs or to make a filmmaker happy. But, those movies are made for the platform, and Apple TV is producing this for ultimately to live in the library on Apple TV Plus. So I feel like personally, this is an example of what so many people kind of criticize Netflix and I don't know, some of the other streamers too, like, you know, that really kind of don't give a true theatrical release to a movie, especially a movie with stars in it, with a you know, a beloved director. You know, like, this is a win to me because they've made back 3/4 of the budget of the movie that otherwise would never really be made back in any way that's transparent to people that want to criticize the movie's performance, like, you know, present company included. But I'm just saying, like, I feel like, you know, you can't look at this and say, oh, this is a failure, because this is not a typical theatrical movie in terms of how it was produced. You know, there was a end in sight for this. There's already a home for this, you know, and this kind of like hybrid new thing that they're doing, like they're doing the same thing for Napoleon in a couple of weeks, you know, where they'll have a theatrical, a true wide release for this movie, and then eventually will be on Apple TV Plus. Like, normally these streamers, you know, they go to these streamers because they basically let them make whatever movie they want. Crazy ass budgets that are through the roof. And there's no real accountability for, you know, whether a movie made money or whether it's, I don't know, in some cases, whether it's even good.
Yeah.
But personally, I've seen the conversations that you're talking about, but I look at it and you throw that number to me and you say it's made back 3/4 of the production budget before it even hits the service that it was intended for.
Right.
Whether it's Scorsese, whether it's an unknown filmmaker that just got a movie into theaters, I mean, that's way ahead of the curve than any other movie that's being produced for streaming that doesn't get a theatrical release. So, I mean, I can't see how that's not a win for Apple to make back that much of its money before it even comes to the platform and possibly attracts, like you said, whatever residuals or whatever subscriber income it gets from people that are going to the service to watch this finally, that didn't see it in theaters. But yeah, I can't look at that in any way and say that's a loss or underperformance for me personally. What's your read on it, Ronald?
I feel like this is a MySpace argument, and we're on TikTok. I feel like it's like,
okay, all right.
People need to catch up. There's a catching up that I feel like that people that are in the media have to do. Like, I feel like some people are there and understand it, and some people don't understand it. And these companies are making tons of money, and they're missing what's happening. And it's strange to see it, because it feels like these like sweeping sort of assumptions about a movie, and it could affect the way that people think about it. I cannot tell you how many people I've heard say, oh, that movie was a flop, I'm not going to see it. Where they should be saying, maybe it's a good movie and it just isn't getting attention that maybe it should be getting, because there's so many movies that aren't getting the attention that they should be getting. So the argument's weird. Get on TikTok and get the Chinese, give all your information to the Chinese.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time. TikTok, it's time. No, I guess that was my gut feeling too. I mean, when I saw that, well, the first time I saw this story, it had made like 46 million domestic. Now it's made 54. So that tells you in a few days, you know, it's continued to make money. But also, I do think what you said, Steve, the fact that if it was intended as almost like a catalog piece for the streaming service that can throw all this money at it, it's almost like giving it this theatrical window that it has, this however vague it is like, it's not like a gift to Scorsese as a great director, but it is sort of like a nod to the prestige of the project. And the fact that it clearly at this point, if they're keeping it in theaters, obviously it's doing something for them. So yeah, I kind of tend to think that it's a silly metric for a movie like this, but I bet people would be surprised to see how little a director like him, how little his movies have made compared to what we now think of as a successful film. You know, I think that you know, budget versus return doesn't always. It's not really the way people talk about the careers of people like him or the Coen brothers, or I mean, you could name a lot of directors who people might be surprised to know like their biggest grossing movies were small potatoes compared to what we now think of as like this 4-quadrant blockbuster. Anyway, I just thought it was an interesting debate, and I kind of agree, Ronald. It's one of those only online kind of debates. You know, it's like if you step away from the computer, you would not know that anyone was having this debate about this movie.
It's wild.
And I kind of hit on it. I hit on it when my initial response to your question, but like you just kind of mentioned it again, like in terms of the real question is the budget of the movie.
Right.
The real question is, you could make this movie for streaming, but filmmakers that can't get the movie made anywhere else, they're going to those platforms because they'll let them make it for anything they want. and he's done it at Netflix, and now he's done it at Apple TV Plus. But in this case, at least this platform has made back almost 3/4, if not more, of their budget, where Netflix just ate the whole thing.
Yeah.
And and he went right from Netflix to the next platform that would give him that much money. So it's really a question about like, that's kind of absurd that this movie cost you. I haven't seen it, so I can't speak. I'm not going to criticize that, but I just feel like in a world, where it's a movie cost $200 million, where you're saying it made 150 some million already worldwide, and there's conversation about it being a failure. Sure, you're framing it against a budget, but that's the real problem, is that they'll go to wherever they let him have whatever budget he wants, and that's probably what he'll do for the next one too.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know.
So this is the kind of movie that might grow, that might like make some more during the holidays. I don't know. It is a daunting prospect. A lot of people don't want to sit down and watch a what might seem like a grim film for 3.5 hours, but I do think it's an engrossing movie. So yeah, I don't know. It's just back to that the greater Scorsese discussion about like this. It's people have a strange way of framing his career now, and I think box office is probably not the right way to judge a guy like him.
Absolutely not. Yeah. But yeah, I'm curious how that movie holds out, especially during Oscar season. Now, not to get into this, but just also in case you didn't hear, you're living under a rock. The strike is over.
I know. I was saying we have to mention
just right. To mention really quickly. So like now, there's probably going to be another push for these movies that are in theaters still and that have a real Oscar chance. So you're going to see more of the cast probably get back out there and help drive these movies a little higher. But yeah, that'll be interesting to see how they kind of pivot with the ones that are in theaters now, because they do have an opportunity to still promote those movies, because there's really not a ton of stuff on the horizon. So I don't know. We'll see.
Man, Brie Larson thought she had the weekend off. She was like, man, it's so nice. I can just kind of chill with my friends. But now Disney's on the phone saying, get out there.
You're literally tonight, if you're listening on Friday, she's gonna be on, I think, Fallon with Tom Hiddleston for the Loki finale. They're gonna be on together.
Oh wow. Okay.
I just saw an article saying that. I was like, wow, that took no time at all.
Dang.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, let's jump in the required viewing. John,
let's go out beyond Neptune.
Take us.
Let's in today's required viewing pick, it's Event Horizon from 1997, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, the other Paul Anderson. I have always found it funny. I think Paul W.S. Anderson has directed a lot of movies. He's one of those guys who manages to keep it going in a sort of a genre space. He's not too far afield from someone like Rennie Harlin or someone like that, who has made some interesting things. Maybe not quite as many good movies as Rennie Harlin, but still somehow in that vein of like a guy who had a moment or two where people were really serious about giving him a shot at some bigger projects, and then has always kind of lurked on the outside, but has kept it going and made movies, and I think probably made a little money. I don't know. I haven't really looked at all of that, but I mean, he's been allowed to persist. And this was, I think, almost like a prestige attempt for him in 1997 when this
I love that you said he's been allowed to persist.
Well, I mean, like, he's one of those guys that's I never go more than a couple of years without hearing his name attached to something, so he's obviously got a pretty solid career. But yes, I don't mean to suggest that he should be like put away or anything like that.
Time to put him down, guys.
But at any rate, I remember when this movie came out and I was excited about it because it was the kind of sci-fi that I like, the kind of like spooky horror meets sci-fi kind of thing, and the idea of a spaceship being a haunted house was cool to me. And I think I can kind of remember what it was that frustrated me about it when I saw it originally, but I have honestly not watched it. I don't think, maybe bits and pieces, but I have not really sat down to watch it as a movie since it came out in 97. So that's what, 26 years. Yeah. So, but this is a story. I feel like this is a familiar arc. For a lot of movies have had this idea. There's been a distress signal out in space. We're with a crew that's going out to investigate it. They find a ship. It's often a ship that's long thought lost. And then, hijinks ensue. And I think this movie does a pretty good job of giving you that feeling of how remote they are and how space can be scary. I don't think it's like a deliberately paced movie. I don't think it gets the kind of chills it could get out of its setting necessarily, but I think it does a pretty good job. The set design is pretty impressive. And it basically is just literally like a trip into hell out past Neptune for the crew of the ship. I think the ship that we're following is the Lewis and Clark. And the cast members are, it's got a great cast. Sam Neill, Lawrence Fishburne, God, what's his name? Pertwee. I don't know his first name, but the actor who plays Smith in this, he's fun to watch. He's been in a few different things. And then Jason Isaacs
I was gonna say Jason Isaacs, yeah.
Julie Richardson. I don't know. It's it's definitely an artifact of its time. Like a movie we saw a couple weeks ago, Audition. It's got a very jarring last. Did you notice the final song that plays over the end credits is like this kind of dance track? It's like a rave track kind of. I might drop it in right now just because it's funny to have like at the end of like an unsettling horror kind of jolt ending. But I don't know. I think this movie held up for me better than I thought, simply because when I saw it originally, I was kind of disappointed with it, and like I said, I think I can pinpoint why. But this time I saw it as sort of like a movie from 1997 that, like I said, had some cool set design and some good cast members, and I think it held its sort of creepy plot line. It's a little incoherent maybe in the final act, and you feel like it's shortchanged a little bit. But as far as atmosphere and just a kind of almost like a fun kind of hellish horror, this was an enjoyable watch for me. What did you think, Ronald? And had you seen it before?
No, I had not seen it before. I'm gonna be a little hard on it. I don't know if I enjoyed this at all. It was very hard for me. I think part of it was the pacing. Pacing is typically an issue for me. We're half an hour into the movie and nothing has happened but exposition. I mean, and that's cool. But and then when it happened, it was like a haunted house. Like it was like these like images with flashing lights. Oh, next person. Oh, and then it started getting crazy. I did not enjoy this movie at all.
Okay.
I did enjoy the people though. That's the thing. Like, I love Lawrence Fishburne in the leader role. No, I don't think I liked it.
Right.
I don't think I liked it.
Did you watch it in 4K, by the way? I didn't know how many Ks you got into your screen.
I did, man.
Didn't help it for you, huh?
No.
I've always really liked this movie, and I mean, I don't know the last time I saw it. It had to be at least 20 years, but I think the main thing that I kind of liked it for some of the reasons it sounds like Ronald didn't like it. I kind of like that, like I guess a surprisingly low body count, for like the first hour or so when you kind of understand what's happening in the movie. But I think the cast really makes it work. I think, I love Sam Neill and really anything he's in. Obviously, Lawrence Fishburne, we're all fans of his as well. So, they stand out. But I just always remembered, like, I guess how, like, disturbing a lot of the movie felt to me when I saw it then, when I was, whatever, age 16 or 17 when I first saw it. But, I mean, I feel like, that exposure kind of felt the same watching it again. And I really do feel like John mentioned it last week when he kind of picked this choice. Like, I feel like, there's a very vocal minority or section of film Twitter or whatever that really love this movie for a variety of reasons. And I mean, honestly, sure. I personally can align with some of them. I really like some of the, how disturbing some of the imagery is. I really like the ship atmosphere. I just basically like when it goes bad. I like how bad it goes, and that for the most part, there's not like a real entity that's like I guess not visible, but like that. It's really just like each person like imploding and just turning into like a monster, based on these outside forces that are happening and causing them to be like that. But I mean, I really like those kinds of things where, there's no intrinsic monster or like some tangible monster that they're physically fighting the whole movie, that it's more of like, a passing of, somebody deconstructing in real time and like being the bad person at that moment in the movie. But yeah, I don't know. It is very 1997, and even that mention of that like dance cut at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just feel like even the editing of it, just the way it's shot and looks, I think it actually looks really good for a movie that that was made. I don't know, budget was I think 50 or 60 million.
Well, man, the sets look beautiful.
Yeah, and there's not that
really
much
stuck on my brain. Like
there's not that much crappy early CGI either. There's a few moments, and I think when you get your extra Ks in there, Ronald, isn't it true that the early CGI just stands out more because it looks even less real than the backgrounds? But there's like that floating water or floating liquid stuff in this that looked really fake. But I feel like it was so otherworldly that somehow it didn't seem didn't ruin anything. But I agree, sets, locations,
gorgeous.
I mean, you know, what you're talking about, Ronald, is kind of a disposable nature to this movie, or of something you didn't like about it. I think that, and maybe Steve's hinting at this too, there is it is like a B movie treatment. It's like The Shining and Alien and all these slightly classier movies thrown into a blender.
You're
and
right.
It's a Paul W. This is a guy who's coming off of Mortal Kombat, you know. And doing this instead of the X-Men, basically. So, you know, who knows? But I think that, like, when I said last time it might be the best movie by a bad director, I kind of said it as a joke, but I do think that there are people who view this as like this was his sort of money shot in a strange way. That was, not to be too gross about it, but it's kind of a gross movie. But like this was his, you know, this was his attempt at like having, I don't know, just a little bit more going on. And I do think it still is kind of B movie, Ronald, like the way that the dialogue, and I think that might be part of the charm of it for me, is that it's got these aspirations and this production design with, you know, kind of almost like things, especially nowadays, that seem very tropey and very kind of cheesy and expected. But at the time, I really don't think it was quite as expected. And I think this may have been, if not the first, it's one of the earliest explanations of folding time and, you know, holding up something paper and punching a hole through it to indicate like the idea of folding time to move through space and, you know, to teleport or whatever, different dimensions. I feel like this is it's a good hodgepodge of sci-fi concepts that we're still sort of dealing with. And I honestly think that whole idea of, they went through a portal to some place, but we don't know where. That's the mystery of that, the ambiguity of that works for me in the sense of it could be hell, but hell could, like he says in the movie, hell could just be a word. We don't know. One thing I wanted to mention to you guys about the production design, I just hope I'm not the only one that noticed it. Did you notice how rickety Lawrence Fishburne's captain's chair was? Like when he was sitting in it, I think it was supposed to be like seeming like he was moving with the ship, but it was just hanging from the ceiling, and it just had a little bit of like sitting on someone's porch and like a wicker swing, and you're trying to keep it still, you know, like it felt like undignified for old Captain Fishburne to be sitting in that chair. But yeah, and one last thing, you mentioned Sam Neill, his track record, I was just looking at it. It's like this type of material. He's got that movie Dead Calm. He's in an Omen movie. He's got Jurassic Park. He's got In the Mouth of Madness. He's got Hunt for the Wilder People. I feel like he's got like just enough touchstones for someone, you know, he's got like secretly one of those great genre movie careers. Maybe not.
What's that one like that he's really well known for? It's like, is it Possession?
Yeah.
Is he in that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those ones that I feel like has like a really strong cult following, that like had a 4K release recently. And like, I feel like they even like were before the strike. Like, I remember seeing him like on like a show or something. Someone was interviewing him about that movie, but even that one is like such a genre kind of horror movie. I think that was it from 1981. I mean, but even that early, like it's the same lane, you know, that he kind of settles into so nicely. I've never seen that, but it's always been on my list. Maybe I'll pick it for a required viewing one day. I don't know. But yeah, he's awesome. I love Sam Neill.
All right, so I think it means it's your turn next, Ronald. What's our next required viewing?
So I was trying to think of horror films that involved a single place or mostly a single place, and trying to dig into the foreign bag. And I don't know if this takes place in one place, but every shot I see of it takes place in one place. And I always see this on a list of horror films that are very slept on. It's 2011's the Sydney, Australia's The Tunnel. I've always heard about this movie, never seen it in my life. It's on Tubi. It's very readily available, but
2011. Who's in this? I feel like this sounds familiar.
Nobody I know.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anybody I know.
All right, cool. I mean, I feel like I've heard of this, but like I recognize the poster.
Yeah, man.
But like probably from like lists like you're describing.
Yeah, whenever you see a list, it's like slept on movies, horror films you should see. It's always like The Tunnel, like right in the middle of it. I've never seen it, but
that's a good place for a tunnel to be. It's right in the middle of something.
Right in the middle.
Well, Steve, I think now it would be a good time for us to do a new feature called Fassbender versus Fassbender. And I think sequentially, maybe it's good to start with the Fassbender that you. I'm trying to come up with some Fassbender way to say saw something, but I can't think of anything. So yes, what did you think of the? I guess we're calling it a Fassbender, or I was, but it's a Fincher as well. Fassbender meets Fincher in The Killer, which you had the privilege of seeing because you were in Atlanta, which is apparently, a lot of people might not realize, is like a major, like here in Baltimore and DC, we're like in that next market. You know, we get like the next wave. We get some movies that don't go everywhere, but Atlanta gets everything, and has forever. When I was a kid, I was driving there to go see like Coen Brothers movies, and even Schindler's List, I remember, had like a prestige rollout release, and I saw it there. So tell us a little bit about The Killer.
So yeah, I mean, this is David Fincher's new film. I guess what I mean, obviously I'm a fan of Fassbender, but really kind of the thing that made me excited was
You're a fansbender?
I'm a fansbender. There you go. Was a screenplay by Andrew Kevin Walker, the guy who wrote Seven, which is one of my top 5, probably 3 movies of all time. But yeah, I don't know, like anytime a Fincher movie comes out, I'm jazzed, and it's especially one that looks, you know, like the kind of, I don't know, especially the kind of Fincher movies that I kind of want to watch, you know, this you know, killer for hire kind of, you know, setup, and the idea of the whole movie resting on like a mistake that starts the movie, and you know, the repercussions in that community of killers and lawyers and clients, and you know what happens when that happens, you know, when someone makes a mistake with a job, and who is the answer for that, and you know, how does said killer respond to that himself. But I mean, it's really cool. I really like this movie a lot. Like the more it sat with me and the more I thought about it, talked to Aaron about it when I got home from that trip, it felt as much of it's the kind of Fincher movie that I really like, just kind of with the world and kind of how cold it feels, you know, like that's some of the stuff I love about his movies. This is definitely in that lane, and I think Fassbender's incredible in the movie. There's a really fun, like a lot of the movie takes place, like there's just narration, like his character is kind of, it's narration of what he's doing, what he's feeling, what he's thinking, what's happening. And there's very little actual like dialogue that he has in the movie. It's minimal, but I mean, it's there. It's not like 2 lines or anything like that. But I think it works really well for the movie to kind of literally start the movie in this guy's head, because he's in this moment of complete calm, and you know, this professional approach to, you know, how he takes this job, this kill, the music he listens to, you know, the fitness watch that he wears to lower his heart rate, you know, all these meticulous things that he does. He's that type A kind of person. And when something goes wrong, it just like kind of spirals, and you see somebody losing control of a situation and trying to correct it, but in the process of doing so, just kind of making it all worse in ways. But yeah, it's a great cast. I mean, it's a really Fassbender it's his movie. I mean, Tilda Swinton is in it, Arliss Howard's in it. What's the guy's Charles Parnell, who I guess most recently people recognize from Top Gun Maverick. They're probably the faces that you'd recognize from this movie. I don't know that the movie has a lot of the signature like filmmaking that you'd probably notice from Fincher. There's an incredible fight sequence in the middle of the movie. It's probably like the sequence that people talk about from the movie that is really great. It's kind of like that, like, you know, those like pans across the entire like inside of a house, like the geography that we always talk about. And then in terms of how they set up, you know, somebody entering someone else's house, and like when a fight breaks out, you know, you're stepping in and out of rooms, and the camera is following them, and you're recognizing when you're going back into a room where a table was just busted, you know, and then somebody's using that table as a weapon. But like, there's all these great reference points in that fight, and I don't know who the actor is that's in that fight with him. It's this massive dude. I don't know if he's like a wrestler or a UFC fighter or something, but that sequence is definitely the standout. But yeah, I don't know. In general, I was really happy that I got to see this in theaters. I don't know, this kind of movie that you can't watch at home on Netflix, you know, so it's a definite recommend for me to watch, you know, if you can't make it to a theater to see it, or if it's like I said at the top of this show, like Netflix doesn't put a lot of their movies in a lot of theaters, and when they do, it's pretty minimal, and it's in some major markets. So if you have Netflix and this sounds interesting to you, I don't know that it's like top tier Fincher for me, but I didn't love Mank, like the more recent movie that he released, but this is more back into the form of the kind of movies that he makes that I really like. And I mean, to be blunt, like I really kind of like the mean, cold, Fincher movies, that kind of feel like that world that he knows how to create so well. And this is definitely back in that space for sure. But yeah, that's out today on Netflix. But that sounds like quite the opposite of the Michael Fassbender that you experienced, John. Like a literal 180. So talk to us about Next Goal Wins.
I will. I just want to add, though, I agree with you about the Fincher thing of like, I love Fincher, but I think the Fincher I love best, they've been covering his career on Blank Check recently.
Yeah.
And just going through his career movie by movie, I've realized it's like I sort of admire pretty much all his movies. And you can usually tell there's some greater thing he's trying to do stylistically, whether it's a sequence or a kind of way of shooting, something like Panic Room, that's like a really meticulously crafted movie. You can see why he was drawn to that material from a visual standpoint. I haven't seen quite what the visual hooks are in The Killer, except that it just feels slick. It just has that look and feel of a Fincher movie. And I haven't heard anything about like any particular fight sequence yet, but I can't believe I get to watch it. Maybe by the time people are hearing this, I may have already watched it. I can't believe Netflix has given it to us. And as far as you were saying, Fassbender is kind of funny in this, and I do think it got me on the subject of him being funny, because that's what I said to you guys was maybe there's a reason we don't see Fassbender like headlining more comedies after I saw the new Taika Waititi film Next Goal Wins, which is a comedy adaptation, like an underdog sports comedy adapted from a documentary of the same name about the American Samoan national team, soccer team, football team, I should say, football team that was terrible and like had a record loss of 31-0 and was kind of a disgrace. And so this Dutch American football coach is kind of sent into career purgatory of being sent to get them into shape. I think they have like a month to get them into shape for a big game, and the idea being, or big match, and the idea being that, like, if they could just win one game, it would mean a lot, like to legitimize this enterprise. And in the movie, they really sell that idea of like they haven't ever gotten a goal, and they've just winning one game. And in the doc, I saw the doc. The doc's not great. It's kind of mild and sort of sweet, but it kind of makes you even more bewildered that this is something that Taika Waititi chose to adapt and then make all these odd changes to it, just odd little random changes to the real story. But we've all seen the underdog sports comedy, and you judge it based on like how well does it get you to that final moment of like, oh, are they going to win? Are they not? And if you know the real story, you might know what happens. But I don't know. It was charming. The supporting cast is charming, particularly there's a guy, Oscar Kitely, I believe. Hope I'm getting his name right. Who I think has been in a few different things. Does anybody know Oscar Kitely? If you saw his face, you would probably recognize him. I thought I had this information pulled up, but I guess I don't. Oh, yes.
I don't recognize him.
But is that his name, Oscar Kitely, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, and the supporting cast, I mean, it's nice. It's charming. It's a lot of, I think, New Zealand and Samoan actors. And so it's not a lot of people whose faces you've seen before. And I really think I kept picturing like who could have done this, who could have had the comic energy to really hold this movie together. And the names that just came to me right off the top were, I thought, like Jude Law, Sam Rockwell, Daniel Craig. I could see all of them doing something that's the right pitch of this movie. But I mean, the movie makes one really odd choice, which is that they make the character of the coach transphobic that he to be in real life. There's a non-binary or like I think player to ever play in a World Cup game named Jaya in the film. Really, the should be Jaya's story, but instead that Jaya's story is couched in the redemption arc for this guy who's very transphobic, like weirdly, oddly transphobic at first. And when he has a little redemption moment, it's meant to tweet. It's like I don't think that really happened in real life. In the documentary, there didn't really seem to be a trace of the coach treating Jaya that way. So that made it just a very strange choice to put it in the film, especially because the way the film handles it is, like I said, treating it like we should be patting Michael Fassbender's character on the back for like coming around, rather than the other way. And if this movie had been centered on Jaya, I think it could have been an entirely different sort of film, because the actor who plays Jaya is a one named actor whose name I have not seen before, but I believe they also are a transgender actor, and they're great too. So I don't know, it's an odd thing. Like if people are Taika Waititi, I mean, I've been in on his side, and I even loved aspects, not the whole movie, but I liked aspects a lot of Love and Thunder. But I think if you were to critique that movie, you would say the script could be sharper,
sure,
and the direction could be less indifferent. And you could say the same thing about this, but the one thing you can't say about Thor: Love and Thunder that you can say about this is, it could also have a central performer who's like bringing it over the top, like gelling all that comic gel together, and I just don't know if that's a sentence, but like it's, Michael Fassbender doesn't seem like he's quite the guy for the job. It's not like he's bad, and he has some good moments in the movie. It's just his character is the weirdest part of this movie. So, and also I'll say this, if you are a person who's like, oh, is Taika Waititi like too pleased with himself, is he not trying hard enough? The movie literally opens with him like in like sketch comedy mustache and like fake teeth, doing a really broad character who kind of narrates the movie, but really doesn't really exist in the movie at all, doesn't need to be there. And it's like literally the first thing you see is him like mugging and kind of half-assing it seems, in this character. And it to me feels like it's such a troll of the people that are getting tired of him, because it's like, if you were to say the problem with him is he doesn't try hard enough, and he's too loosey goosey, and the movie starts that way, I almost admire it, but I have to admit it made me kind of roll my eyes. It's like it didn't really feel like the right way to start this story. But it's it's enjoyable enough, and I could see people enjoying it because it's so mild, and because what it's going for. It's trying to hit that sweet spot of the, like I said, the underdog sports comedy. You just kind of wish it focused more on the team, and more on the characters we haven't seen before, rather than the white dude who like has to work out his issues.
Right.
And do you know, John, is that like a limited release, or do you recall?
I really don't know. I think
it's a wide.
I really don't know. I think it might be limited now, and then it's coming to, I think, the 17th. It might be going into something like wide release, but
let me see real quick. Yeah, it just says the 17th. I don't know if maybe it's a wide. Okay, I was just curious. Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely be out on the 17th at the least. Yeah. So also, go ahead and talk about Monarch for a little bit, guys. Just like, first 2 episodes.
Ronald, how many did you watch?
The two that are coming out. I didn't want to watch anymore, but not because I didn't like it, just because I would have watched the whole thing, honestly. We're talking about a Apple TV exclusive movie that's in the world of the Monarch monster universe, which is King Kong.
Series,
yeah. Oh, series, yeah. But it's in the world of the
King Kong. Like a movie.
Yeah, in the King Kong universe. Very cinematic, beautiful show, and it touches on a lot of the events from Kong Skull Island. Why am I saying Kong? Kong Skull Island. In fact, showing some of the Kang. In fact, showing the younger versions of some of the characters, like
cool.
Which is really cool. So I guess, John, what'd you think about it? What'd you think about the show and how it felt?
Well, I think this whole batch of Kong and Godzilla movies we've gotten in recent years are quietly like a really fun franchise, even though I don't love the Godzilla movie. I enjoy all the other ones. And I think that this, the first scene takes place, it's got John Goodman's character from Kong Skull Island in it. What happens in it just blew me away with how good it looked and how I was watching it on television. And I was just like, my thought was, how do it's not like the show looks perfect, but how do
Right.
Marvel and Star Wars have such a hard time getting cinematic imagery on my television? And then this show, it managed to do it at least up to the par of the movie. Like, it feels like the movies that it's taken from. And there's a lot of flourishes that feel very cinematic. I do think the story kind of slows down a little bit when it gets into certain personal character storylines, but that's like the risk you take with a sequential show like this. It's building its cast. I got to where I was really excited when it would cut away from somebody because I was ready to cut away, but then every now and then I'm ready to cut back. So it's like there's a good rhythm. We don't know yet where it's going, but it's stashing through time. It's going back in time. The brilliant thing they did, the genius stroke of this show could be seen as hiring Wyatt Russell to play young Kurt Russell. That's just so beautiful. And it's like, whatever happens, like, we'll always have that. There'll never be that, why didn't they do something like this? It's just such a perfect match for the material. And Kurt Russell, in those first 2 episodes, we just get a little bit of him, but his tone. I mean, would you not agree, Ronald? He nails the tone of this thing. Like, he does. He kind of takes it up a notch, makes it feel a little more adventure-y and heightened, because up to that moment we've been having these sort of more grounded characters. But the effects are good. The each episode of the 2 has given you at least one moment of like, holy shit, that's like legit. There's a moment towards the end of the second episode, right when I was thinking we weren't going to get like a monster scene, and we get like a hell of a great monster scene. And I don't know, they're just well shot, well orchestrated. I hope they keep up this quality level. I don't think the dialogue is the best. The actors are making it work though. And the world is fun. So yeah, I'm on board for Monarch at this point. It really feels like, when the trailer came out, Steve, you said this might be the most cinematic of all the streaming shows like based on franchises. And I don't know, again, if they're going to manage to stick it out, but I do think that so far it's that Apple TV Plus thing of, you can tell they really tried to make this thing pop. So
that's gorgeous.
And it feels like a world with like a mythos that's actually, they're kind of making it more interesting. Like, it's deepening a little bit. It's not quite like Lost or something where you're just like tantalized by like the answer to the next mystery. But I would say that each of these episodes ends in a way that makes you ready to. You said you could watch them all, Ronald, and I kind of felt like I could at least have watched the third one. And I know at the end of it, I might have been wanting to watch the fourth one. So people should not miss Monarch. But I also would recommend, maybe, what do you think? At least watch Kong Skull Island before you see this.
Yeah,
I feel like it kind of picks directly up from it in a strange way.
You will not know any of what they're referencing if you haven't seen that movie, and you don't know that like Anders is a young John Goodman. It's like that. Those choices that they make are pretty cool, but you have to have seen that movie at least. The other ones you don't necessarily have to see, but yeah, that one in particular really hits on.
Well, what's the name of the actress that plays the mom of
oh man,
do you have the information in front of you? I wish I could say her name. She's great.
Yeah, there's a character that has I say spotty past, and his family is broken up in a lot of ways, sometimes across the world, sort of, and he has a family that's in Japan. And when you see just the version of this fragmented family and the acting that this actress does, it's just out of this world.
Well, I'm actually talking about the woman in the flashbacks, but yes, she's fantastic too.
Yeah, I'm loving the like side lady. I mean, well, not the side lady, the lady that doesn't know she's a side lady. But yeah, the one from the flashbacks is incredible. This is the thing, everybody's good. And there's a chemistry that it was like they hired based on these chemistry reads. It must have been, right? Because I every time it relies pretty heavily on kind of one-on-one dialogue. You know what I mean? Like, and it seems to work every scene that I'm seeing. When they pair these people together, depending on who it is, it's just really.
Did you say that Anders is playing a young John Goodman?
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool choice. And when you see it, it makes more sense. Like he's kind of like, he has an amount of silly that John Goodman would have had as a younger guy. So like, he pulls it off.
Well, I like when they do vibe casting like that. That's not like, It's not really look-alike casting, but it's like you could see Anders kind of like filling out and growing a beard. I don't know. You could see it kind of working tonally. I think the actress that I was looking for is Mari Yamamoto, who plays Keiko.
Oh, okay. The younger,
yeah, like back in the flashback. She's just great. And there's a moment where she's being attacked by those critters, and she's like screaming out in pain and in fear, and it really rattled me. I mean, it really was like she got more real with that moment than I expected the show to get, as far as like, damn, you know. So I don't know. I hope they manage to maintain this tone where it feels like crazy stuff can happen, even though we're still dealing with monsters that are giant. And so it's not like they could sneak up on people, but it's got just the right elements of like Jurassic Park, you know, mixed with something a little bit darker and a little bit more sinister. You know, so
check it out, please. It's a really, really cool show.
Nice. I think the only other one I wanted to mention real quick before we wrap, I know Ronald, I think you saw, I don't know if John watched it or not, but the Persian version, we got a link to a screener last week that we just couldn't see it in time for last week's episode. But this is a film that's actually in release now. I think is it a Sony Pictures Classic? I think it was film. But yeah, we watched it just after like the deadline for our recording, and we didn't get to mention it. But I wanted to at least bring it up this week. If it's playing near you, just wanted to recommend you go see this movie. This is a movie about an Iranian American woman who kind of basically is at a point in her life where she starts to learn more about herself and learn more about her family, specifically about her mother and the struggles that like they went through to kind of bring this family to America, and the balance of going back and forth between the two countries through their youth and, you know, in teenage years. She's kind of got her own things going on in her life that she's trying to navigate, relationships, work, things like that. But something happens with the family that kind of brings up this family secret that kind of propels her to better understand her mother, who she's always had, you know, a bit of a unbalanced relationship with. But it's just like a really great, you know, like family drama that's also very funny. It also has an awesome soundtrack. Really well acted. Again, this is a movie I had no awareness of until we were offered a screener for it the day that we were recording last week's podcast. And I really hope that, you know, it finds, I don't know what the plans are for streaming after its theatrical run, but this is a very, it feels like a very it could be a very mainstream kind of a, you know, a hit, you know, if it found an audience, maybe on a streaming service or something, I don't know. But it's a smaller film, and the actress who plays the lead, Layla Mohammadi, she was, I think, in the Secret Lives of College Girls, the Netflix show.
That's a great show.
That's kind of where I recognized her, but I love her. She was great in this. And she's great in that series too, also. But this movie is a definite recommend. Again, it's a small film. Like right now, the theater near me, I think it's only playing like twice a day. I don't know how long it will have a run, but put it on your, you know, IMDb watch list or Letterboxd list. If it comes onto a streaming service anytime soon, I wanted to recommend it for sure. And I think you felt the same, right, Ronald? What did you think of it?
I loved it. Aaron and I felt like it was so good that it could be like a pilot for a premium channel TV show. Like it has like this depth to it that it feels a little more lived in than a lot of movies that I've seen. Like it literally is two huge stories told separately that almost feel like two separate movies that are so cohesive and well done that it feels like they're walking a tightrope that I don't think a lot of people could do. It feels so personal and emotional, and I think that everybody can find a place in it, but especially immigrants. I mean, this is an immigrant story. It is a New York immigrant story. It is a rise to power. It is a rise to power in one's femininity and character, and it is powerful. I cried like crazy towards the end just because it was so, I don't know, man. It hit me in the feels. And all the performances are just incredible. Everybody's gorgeous in it. That's another thing. Like it is kind of hard to process everybody just because everybody's so beautiful. But
it's angering.
It's angering. And the acting is so good. Like the Persian
Yeah,
version.
and the comment about like a mainstream kind of hit. I mean, this is a movie that won the audience award at Sundance.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is definitely like a movie that is very entertaining. It's very funny. Like you said, there's a lot of emotional beats that really hit, you know, familial things that really hit that everybody can relate to.
Aaron loved it too. Aaron
Yeah, I mean,
loved it.
this was like a this might possibly make my top 10. I really enjoyed even the romance. You know, it's very slight in the movie. It's kind of off the cuff and funny.
Yeah.
It's silly, but it fits so well into this large family that we meet, and it just seems like it's right at home. But yeah, I just wanted to really recommend. Again, I don't know what the life of this film is after theaters. If there's a plan for a streaming service, I don't know where Sony Pictures Classic kind of, you know, funnel their releases to streaming services, but it'll be there, I'm sure, in the next month or so. So try to find it if you can't see it in theaters. This was a great movie. Then again, it's called the Persian version.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Otherwise, I think I'm all out. I'm excited to check out Monarch, and I don't know.
You know, I was looking for that online, and I accidentally watched a movie called The Purging Virgin. No,
not the same movie.
No, not the same movie.
Dang.
Not beautiful.
That's nuts.
There were nuts.
Yeah, I bet there were. Movieschmovie.com is the website. You can hit that up and kind of choose a podcast platform that you prefer to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. You can also follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/movieschmoviepodcast if you prefer the video element of this podcast. But we got new episodes coming out every week. And we'll be back next week with, again, Ronald's choice for required viewing is The Tunnel, available on, you said, Tubi, right?
Yep.
So check that out with us and come back next week and, you know, listen along as we talk about it. We'll see you guys next week. And as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.